You see a crocodile, and your brain does exactly what it's been trained to do for thousands of years. Cold eyes, rows of teeth, a body that looks like it was built in a factory that only makes things meant to kill. Every instinct in you says, stupid, slow, primitive, a leftover from some ancient swamp that should have gone extinct with the dinosaurs. And that instinct is wrong, not slightly wrong, almost completely backwards. Because the crocodile lying motionless on that riverbank, the one you've been taught to think of as a dumb, lazy ambush machine, is one of the most intelligent, most socially complex, and most successful predators that has ever existed on this planet. It has outlived asteroid impacts, ice ages, and the extinction of the dinosaurs themselves. And almost everything popular culture has told you about why is completely wrong. This goes deep, let's go. Start with the biggest myth of all, that crocodiles are basically dumb. Cold-blooded, simple, reactive, just a jaw with a brainstem attached. Here's what actually happens in a crocodile's brain. Researchers studying crocodilian neuroanatomy have found that crocodiles possess a cerebral cortex structure more complex than previously assumed, capable of supporting behaviors like problem-solving, tool use, and long-term memory. In documented field studies, crocodiles have been observed balancing sticks on their snouts during nest-building season specifically to attract birds looking for nesting material, then ambushing the birds that come to investigate. That's not instinct. That's planning. That's understanding cause and effect well enough to set a trap days in advance. Crocodiles also demonstrate something researchers call behavioral plasticity, the ability to change hunting strategy based on what's worked before. Nile crocodiles in certain river systems have been documented coordinating hunts, multiple individuals working together, to intercept migrating wildebeest at the exact point in a river crossing where escape is hardest. That requires something far beyond blind reflex. It requires timing, positioning, and what looks a lot like shared intent. There's also evidence of long-term learning that lasts years, not just moments. Wildlife researchers monitoring crocodile populations near tourist boats and fishing areas have documented individual crocodiles learning to associate specific boat engine sounds with feeding opportunities, altering their position and behavior days or even weeks in advance of recurring patterns. A simple reptile, running on pure instinct, shouldn't be capable of recognizing and adapting to patterns that take humans repeated exposure to notice themselves. Now let's talk about something almost nobody knows. Crocodiles are, by some measures, more socially complex than most reptiles are given credit for. They're not solitary monsters waiting in the mud for something to wander too close. Crocodiles maintain dominance hierarchies within shared territories. They communicate through a surprising range of vocalizations. Hatchling crocodiles call out from inside their eggs before birth, and the mother responds by digging them out of the nest at exactly the right time. Adult crocodiles use distinct vocal signals for territorial warnings, mating displays, and even what researchers describe as distress calls that other crocodiles respond to. There's also long-documented parental care that completely contradicts the cold, instinctive killer stereotype. Female crocodiles guard their nests for months, defend their hatchlings aggressively from predators, and in several documented cases, have been observed carrying dozens of hatchlings in their mouths, the same mouth capable of crushing bone, moving them gently to water without harming a single one. That's not the behavior of a simple reptile running on instinct. That's controlled, deliberate care. This protective behavior doesn't end at birth either. In several documented populations, mother crocodiles have been observed staying near their young for up to 2 years after hatching, responding to distress calls and intervening when predators like monitor lizards or birds of prey approach. 2 years of consistent parental investment is longer than many mammals provide, and it's almost never mentioned in how crocodiles get portrayed. Here's where the history gets genuinely strange. Crocodiles have survived 4 of the 5 major mass extinction events in Earth's history. The asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago didn't touch them. Ice ages that reshaped entire continents didn't end them. Crocodilians have existed in roughly their current form for over 200 million years, making them older than most of the animal lineages we consider ancient, older than most dinosaur species, older than mammals as we know them today. The reason isn't brute strength, it's efficiency. A crocodile's metabolism is so slow and so well optimized that it can survive on a fraction of the calories a similarly sized mammal would need. Documented research shows crocodiles can go over a year without eating in extreme conditions, simply by slowing their metabolic processes down to near dormancy. That's not a design flaw. That's one of the most efficient survival systems in the animal kingdom. It's worth pointing out just how varied the family tree behind that 200 million year run actually is. Crocodilians have, at different points in history, included species that lived almost entirely on land, species the size of small cars that hunted in open plains, and species adapted to fully marine environments, crossing open ocean between continents. The river ambush predator most people picture is just one branch of a family that has repeatedly reinvented itself to survive whatever the planet throws at it, which is arguably the most underrated survival story in natural history. Ancient Egyptians understood something about crocodiles that modern pop culture has forgotten. The crocodile god Sobek wasn't worshipped out of fear of a mindless killer. He represented fertility, protection, and military strength specifically because crocodiles were seen as powerful, deliberate, and disciplined, not chaotic. Entire temples were built to house and care for live crocodiles, sometimes adorned with jewelry, fed by priests, treated as living manifestations of controlled power. That reverence lasted for thousands of years across one of history's longest-running civilizations. Not the response you'd expect to a creature people considered nothing more than a dumb killing machine. Let's address the actual physiology, because it explains so much of what looks lazy but isn't. A crocodile's resting heart rate can drop to around 2 to 3 beats per minute while submerged, allowing it to remain motionless underwater for hours. What looks like nothing happening is, in reality, one of the most energy-efficient ambush systems evolution has ever produced. Crocodiles also possess specialized pressure receptors across their jaws, called dome pressure receptors, sensitive enough to detect the faintest ripple from a single water droplet. In near-total darkness, with zero visual information, a crocodile can pinpoint the exact location of movement on the water's surface using these receptors alone. This is why crocodiles seem to do nothing for hours and then strike with what looks like impossible precision in a fraction of a second. They're not lazy. They're running one of the most sophisticated low-energy surveillance systems in the natural world and waiting for the exact statistically optimal moment to act. Their bite mechanics tell a similar story about precision over brute chaos. A crocodile's bite force is among the strongest measured in any living animal, but the muscles used to open its jaw are comparatively weak enough that, in documented cases, researchers have safely held a crocodile's mouth shut using just their hands or simple tape. That single fact upends the usual image of an unstoppable killing machine. The danger isn't relentless power in every direction. It's overwhelming force applied in exactly one motion, at exactly one moment, with nothing wasted. Now, to be fair, because leaving this out would be irresponsible, crocodiles are still genuinely dangerous animals, and this video isn't suggesting otherwise. Saltwater crocodiles and Nile crocodiles are responsible for hundreds of human deaths and attacks every year, primarily in regions where humans and crocodiles share water access out of necessity. That risk is real, and it should be respected. But the danger comes from precision and patience, not stupidity or randomness. Most documented attacks follow predictable patterns tied to water access points, time of day, and breeding season territorial behavior, not chaotic, indiscriminate aggression. Understanding crocodile behavior, rather than dismissing it as mindless, is exactly what allows conservationists and local communities to coexist with these animals more safely. In several regions where local communities have adopted crocodile awareness programs based on this kind of behavioral understanding, documented attack rates have dropped significantly without requiring the removal of a single animal, proof that knowledge, not fear, is what actually keeps people safe. And here's the part that connects everything. Crocodiles aren't just ancient survivors, they're keystone species, meaning their presence reshapes entire ecosystems around them. In wetlands and river systems where large crocodile populations have been removed through hunting or habitat loss, researchers have documented cascading effects. Fish populations become imbalanced, smaller predator species lose population control, and water quality in some systems measurably declines, because crocodile activity, including their waste and the carcasses they leave behind, feeds entire nutrient cycles that other species depend on. Even crocodile nesting sites play a role most people never consider. Abandoned nest mounds, built from vegetation and mud, decompose into nutrient-rich soil that supports plant growth other species rely on long after the hatchlings have left. Researchers studying wetland ecosystems have found measurable differences in plant diversity near long-used crocodile nesting sites compared to areas without them, meaning this animal is quietly shaping the landscape itself, not just the food chain within it. In other words, the primitive killer, sitting motionless in the mud, is, in many ecosystems, one of the most important environmental regulators in the entire food web. Remove it, and the system it's been quietly stabilizing for millions of years starts to unravel. So the next time you see a crocodile lying still on a riverbank, looking like nothing more than a relic from an ancient, mindless past, remember what's actually happening. Behind those cold eyes is one of the most efficient, most socially complex, and most successful survivors evolution has ever produced, one that's been quietly outlasting everything else on this planet for over 200 million years. You weren't wrong to respect it, you were just lied to about why.